I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to The Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today we're talking to Metise Moore Sr. of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Memphis, so stay with us for a conversation with Metise. And before we get started, I should note that The Sidebar is brought to you by the good folks over at Trezevant Manor. Metise, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
For those listening, we are, again, if you hear noise in the background, it's because we are here in the crosstown on the 10th floor in the atrium, still flooded out of our office, but it's kind of cool up here.
It's a nice view.
Yeah.
Very nice building, nice view.
So we were just talking before we started, some 4 months into the job?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be my 4th month on the 13th of March. So I started November 13th last year.
You moved here from Denver when?
We moved out here, me and my wife moved out here March of 2020.
2020, okay. What brought you to Memphis?
She had a career opportunity. My wife is a director for Blue Cross Blue Shield for the state of Tennessee. And with my career before being an executive, I just kind of needed an airport. So our kids are grown and off living their lives. And I got tired of the cold weather back home,
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, let's make a move down south. And we was going to be closer to my mother-in-law too, out of Louisiana. So
okay, I got you. So we'll come back to Memphis, and is a relatively new Memphian, although you moved in COVID, so that must have been crazy.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Just talk a bit about Boys and Girls Club. And for those, I think, it's one of those organizations, and I'm probably guilty of this, that we all think we know what the Boys and Girls Clubs do. We all think they do amazing work. But describe that. Like, tell that story in a way that probably I haven't been in a Boys and Girls Club facility or a club place in a decade, Yeah,
absolutely. No, the Boys and Girls Club, the initiative across the country is absolutely amazing. The infrastructure that they have through all the different Boys and Girls Clubs across the U.S. is this profound. I mean, we offer curriculum, workforce labor readiness, also health and wellness, conflict resolution, camps during the summer, food programs before and after school. So there's a lot that goes into the programs. We have that same model here in Memphis, but we have a little bit more of a different model, one of the first of its kind in the country. We're having a high school model. So we call it Club in the Box. So we have Boys and Girls Club in some of the local high schools here, about 10 to 12 high schools here, where we offer curriculum
in the school.
Program in the schools. Yeah. So that's a unique model that a lot of other Boys and Girls Clubs across the U.S. are wanting to know how we did it and how we get that program together.
And the unique part is, so Boys and Girls Club normally, once kids are out of junior high or out of elementary school?
Yeah, we are partnered with some of the charter schools. So
Sure.
Those are some of the younger kids that are on the charter school side. You have elementary and also middle school. But we generally take kids middle school through high school.
Okay. And you're one of the organizations on the other show I do on Behind the Headlines, and I'll interview politicians. And obviously right now we're focused a lot on crime and especially on juvenile crime. And again and again and again, I think just last week we had a couple of state legislators on Boys and Girls Club. That's an essential part of the solution. Former Mayor Jim Strickland was a huge advocate for what you all do. How do you view that role of, no one, I'm not saying, and I don't think anyone is, no one person, organization, or entity can stop crime, right? It's a huge and complicated question. But you all do get a big spotlight on you and a lot of praise for the work you do to help kids, teenagers, kids, stay away from crime.
Absolutely. No, we have the biggest youth organization within the greater Memphis. So Mayor Strickland and my prior predecessor did a great job of facilitating some options and solutions for the greater Boys and Girls Club of Greater Memphis. But the particular point, we're at a huge inflection point in the city right now. Especially, you can kind of see some of the crime trends are going to a younger demographic, which we really want to curtail. So actually yesterday I met with Mayor Young and we talked about some solutions there. What we're going to try and position. So my philosophy coming into this position, also the strategy, is I want to partner with any and all the organizations around town. This is a collective issue and a collective problem. So we're going to need all hands on deck in order to remedy this problem and this issue. So the more we can get more folks involved, be more transparent, break down silos and kind of, give the city a big hug, as I like to say. and work together, I think we'll curtail this problem and issue a lot quicker than just working in individual silos.
About how many kids will you all work with in a given year, or how do you measure the reach you have?
Absolutely. This past year we was right up against 7,000. So we've grown. I think the year before that it was a little over 5,000. So my 2-year plan is to double that number. I want to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 15,000 served in the area. And I think me and Mayor Young's initiatives and what we're working on collectively will eclipse that hopefully in the next year or two. And I want to be able to offer a solution that's across the board, across the whole city. Right now, we're in certain areas and certain pockets, but this is a issue that is across the whole city. And hopefully we can find the resources and the partnerships to expand.
And is it, I hate to make it about money, but is it in a large part about money? Doubling is, I assume that's staff, I assume that's facilities, I assume that's whatever, being in more schools, and that comes down to dollars?
Absolutely. The great thing is that when I first came in the seat, I spoke with the chief operating officer for Shelby County Schools, and they just glorified and was really, really happy, very much in sync what the results came with the data points for our association with the high school clubs. So they gave us the opportunity to expand. But, with a lot of the governmental cuts that's happening at the Fed and state level, they're not able to facilitate the dollars, but actually facilitate the requests. So, we'll need some funding in order to expand into the high school areas if that's the game plan. And also, when you hire new staff, you need computers, staff, pay out benefits, collectively you need all those things that go into an operation model. So there is funding that's needed behind it.
Besides, you mentioned the dozen or so high schools that you're in.
Yes, sir.
How many facilities are there? Like neighborhood level facilities or places that kids can go? Or am I thinking in an outdated way?
You're totally right. So we have the high school side, right?
Yeah.
And then we have our own traditional club sites, right? So we have 5 traditional sites, including our headquarters. We have the TTC, which is our technical training center. It's over in South Memphis. We house AutoZone, logistics, welding, also culinary, and also STEM options there. And then soft skills and hard skills, resume, presentation, collectively, those skills that they're going to need to go out into the workforce here. So that's our workforce labor ready arm of the business. And then we have, of course, the traditional clubs as the day-to-day operations for the neighborhoods that we serve. Then you have the high school piece that serves all the kids after school. They get about a 15, 20, 30-minute transition period, and then they go into our programming from the high schools they attend.
So I would get, we're talking to Metise Moore Sr. of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Memphis. He's president and CEO, 4 months into the job, so he's got it completely figured out and totally I would think, but this stuff is very heavy on people's minds right now, and in both a hopeful way and a kind of as Paul Young has said, as Mayor Young has said, we want to bring down the chaos. We want to bring things down.
Absolutely.
And it is both horrifying, and as a parent, you're a parent, it is so sad to see these teenagers involved at such a young age. Crime is just inherently sad, but it is, I think, especially sad with these teenagers. I would think that in terms of getting people, and you can totally tell me I'm wrong because I'm wrong all the time. I would guess there's some of the impediments to getting young people engaged with Boys and Girls Club. One must be in a city this physically big with limited public transport.
Yes.
I assume that's why you're in some schools. Correct. And that is, kids are already there, so let's meet them where they are versus trying to bus them or transport them. Transportation is boring as heck, but it's got to be a big part of the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. With some of our kids with traditional club site, we have a small fleet that we do the transport options for a number of our kids to come to the traditional site. Good thing about the high school operations that we have, those kids are in the school already, so they get that little transition period after school. They can just attend, the high school and attend those programming. But yeah, it's definitely the opportunity to meet folks where they're at, and it's inherently sad because you see the crime element that's already happening, and it's just not here. It's across the nation, a little bit more so here. But after the advent of COVID, A lot of things change, a lot of perspective change. And the younger demographic in which this crime element is seeping into is where the huge concern is. I mean, you see a lot more kids, in middle school age, doing these particular high-level crimes on a consistent basis. So how do we meet those guys where they're at and foster some good opportunities for them to do? And what it is, and me and Mary Young talked about this yesterday, and some of the initiatives you guys heard him talk about is they don't have the resources. They don't have the opportunity. They don't have the guidance. For some of these kids, really the Boys and Girls Club is the only opportunity they have at a good fresh meal, some guidance, some opportunities, some things to talk about, health and wellness, mental health, assistance with their schoolwork, absenteeism, all these different elements that they're dealing with. And then you expect these guys to go out and be A students or B students when they have a collective of problems and issues they're dealing with just at the home front and transitioning into high school. So
it's hard to generalize. So it's an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway. I mean, if you're with a work, trying to connect with a kid, 13 years old or something, and they 14, and they've not been involved in violent crime in any way, but they've maybe, there's a rash of car break-ins all over the country and in Memphis, and maybe they're getting into that.
Yeah.
Why do they say they're doing those things? I don't want to call them petty crimes because I don't want to diminish them, but I want to stay away from violent crime, which is its own sad, horrible thing. But the kids who are maybe, whether they're shoplifting or they're doing some, burglary or car break-ins, why?
Well, it's about resources. It's about time. It's about opportunities. And again, no one really, there's a very small segment of criminal acts where somebody just goes right into the heavy part of criminality.
Sure.
It's an escalated situation where they kind of move up through the process. Like you said, they start off with petty crimes. Maybe it's a little bit of shoplifting at a store, and then it escalates to maybe a car break-in or a home break-in, and then it goes to armed robbery. It's just an escalated pathway and when they start. But what we're seeing and what we're getting in terms of feedback is that these kids just don't have a lot of resources and opportunities, and some of them out of desperation kind of enact some of those things that they're doing right now currently.
And if they've got peer group, we are, sort of social animals. So if you've got a peer group or you've got, it seems fun, it seems cool. I imagine there's this whole range of things that, I know from kids I knew when I was a kid once.
Absolutely.
The reasons they would shoplift were probably not about resources, although for some it was, but it was also about causing trouble, about maybe taking a risk of utter and complete boredom, right?
Absolutely.
That doesn't make it okay. None of it makes it okay. But we'll come back to a lot of that. I want to take a quick break here and do a little bit of housekeeping. And again, thanks to Treasement Manor, which is our new sponsor of The Sidebar. I am Eric Barnes, and this is The Sidebar, which airs on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30. Focused on the community, arts, culture, and everything in between. It's also one of many weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including the Behind the Headlines podcast, the Memphis Grizzlies podcast, the Memphis Tigers podcast, and our food podcast, Soundbites with Chris Harrington and Holly Whitfield. That also airs here on WYXR every Thursday at 11. All of our podcasts are on the Daily Memphian site, as well as iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can get this show and Soundbites on WYXR.org or go to the WYXR app. You can get all the shows actually on WYXR, both the talk and music shows. They're all archived on the app. It's a great way to connect with WYXR. And if you haven't, consider becoming a supporter of WYXR. It's nonprofit, listener-supported radio. You can become a member. There are all kinds of member benefits if you go to the site and look those up, or you can just do a one-time donation or a recurring donation. And if you're not a subscriber to the Daily Memphian, please do subscribe. We're the largest newsroom in the region and a nonprofit, very much subscription and supporter-supported news organization. Just clearing that with Natalie Van Gundy to make sure I can say that out loud. On the sidebar coming up soon, we've got folks from the Memphis Library Foundation. We've got Lauren Kennedy, who we were trying to have on a month or two ago, and everything got mixed up. She used to be at Urban Arts, has now opened a new gallery downtown. And we've also got the Shelby County Arts and Culture Liaison coming on in the next couple of weeks. Recently, we had Birdcap, the street artist. He's got a exhibit or a showing, I should say, here in Crosstown in the gallery. It's very, very cool. We also had the new head of the Urban Arts Commission, Lakeisha Edwards. We had Rory Thomas from Memphis Medical District Collaborative. All those, again, are archived WYXR, Daily Memphian, or wherever you get your podcasts. I mentioned Behind the Headlines, which we do with the good folks over at WKNO every Friday. We recently had a couple of state legislators on talking about, in some ways very similar, in some ways very different concepts of crime. I think that's partly where Boys and Girls Club came up in that conversation as well. We also recently did 2 episodes with the new mayor, Paul Young, one focused on crime, criminal justice, public safety, another on all the other issues that he's trying to tackle. And we had DA Steve Mulroy on recently. We've got coming up, I think this week, is a number of new Memphis City Council members. We also have Shondell Ryan, who's the new head of the Downtown Memphis Commission, used to work for the city under Jim Strickland. That's coming up in the next couple of weeks. But again, we're here with Metise Moore of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Memphis. How did you get into this work?
Actually, I've been in this work my whole life. After college, I played Division I basketball at the University of Akron, and tried the pro basketball career stuff, and the body started breaking down. But while I was out at a free agent camp back home in Denver in '93, when I came home after the camp for a week, I found out my little brother had got killed in gang violence.
I'm so sorry.
My little brother, both my little brothers, one survived, one didn't. And, it was in Denver, we had an influx of the Crips and Bloods that came through there from L.A. in the mid-'80s, and it just kind of curtailed and kept that pathway up probably to the mid-2000s. It slowed down some then, but it's still prevalent to this day, but not nearly as bad back then. But I decided then, the neighborhood that I grew up in, that I wanted to give back and help out kids to figure out there's a better way, a better pathway, and better options out there for themselves. They have to go down that same route. And I seen what it did to my family, my mom, my brother, my sister, also my other extended families, how bad that tragedy hit us. And it took us a long time to really get back to a normalcy, right? So I wanted to try and curtail that by offering solutions. So I started up a nonprofit basketball organization called Denver Hoopers. And we did a lot of great things. It wasn't just about the basketball organization. The sports aspect was the key, or the carrot, if you will, to bring kids in. But we taught them a lot of life lessons. We mandated school, also a GPA, a weekly progress report, conduct report, and those things. And then we also tied that into tutoring and mentorship programs with a lot of the local universities in Denver, Metro State, DU, Regis University. They would have their grassroots come in and kind of mentor and also help us out with some of the curriculum stuff for our kids that were struggling. So we got a lot of momentum behind that program for a lot of great businesses and partners in Denver for at-risk youth, and also our program there. And then we parlayed that into starting to merge with a bunch of other organizations, other basketball organizations in the city. And we formed something called Colorado Connect. So basically connecting all these different organizations in the city together underneath one umbrella. That was a huge success. And then my cousin is Chauncey Billups, and he had Billups Elite. Chauncey right now is the head coach for Portland Trailblazers. And he was like, hey, let's bring this thing together as one. So we did that and had a really great run before he had to disband it, and I moved because when you're an NBA coach, you can't have affiliation to AAU teams because of the NBA thing. Yeah. Conflict of interest there. But I've been doing that. If only
he hadn't taken a head coaching job.
Yeah, we'd be
it's
fine.
Not like it was his life dream,
But no, so it's been a lifelong. Wherever I coached for 25 years. Yeah. AAU in high school, but we also parlayed, again, some of those life lesson components into that to really help the kids and the youth to better understand there's greater things out there for you. And also you have to commit, you have to also be accountable, and also you got to work your butt off, right, in this world. So it is transitioned to here, to Memphis, and I seen there was a need. Being in the corporate world, I've been in the high tech for my whole career. And I seen the opportunity once Boys and Girls Club came a calling for a CEO and president's position. I'm like, man, this would be a great opportunity to really help, like we kind of did back home. So
yeah, is that part of it? I mean, it's kind of part of the earlier conversation, is just connecting with kids, sort of where they are with sports. I guess Boys and Girls Club isn't just sports. There's career stuff.
Absolutely.
What are the other ways for those kids who aren't sports kids that you can connect with them and create that sense of all the things you just talked about through sports are possible through other activities, I assume?
Absolutely, yeah. Like our site, Alvaro Samuelson, it has a really nice music studio that was put together a few years back by Notes for Notes. So it is a full-blown recording studio, mixer, soundproof room, all the different instruments and everything else. So for our kids that are really interested in the music aspect, they can deal with that piece of it. Then we have health and wellness. We have mental health solutions. We have other options, work curriculum, labor stuff. What I also want to bring to the table is a bigger footprint for STEM. There's a lot of different great opportunities and careers within STEM out in the field. And we know that the way that the business model and the corporate model in the world is going right now is toward automation and AI and data analytics and also machine learning. So there's a lot of different things and areas that kids can participate in or open up that mental note or door for them to go, man, this is super cool. Maybe I can participate in this and kind of make this out of a career, from operations to engineering, to programming, the coding, marketing, logistics. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces of that fall into the automation part of the business world.
It's kind of, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's kind of amazing how many of those jobs are also available without a college degree now.
Absolutely.
Because those things, I think for a lot of kids, I remember growing up, my parents didn't, my mom and stepdad didn't go to college, and not a lot of people around me were going to college. And it seemed daunting. It seemed 4 more years of this. It was expensive. Yeah. It was just daunting on every level. And now there are all these opportunities. I think to do these incredible, really high-paying jobs, really
Absolutely.
Interesting jobs. It's not like going into an old school factory or an old school whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think kids these days understand that, these options that are really accessible? I'm not saying they're easy, but they're accessible.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I don't think that the kids understand, just even from a high tech type position or a blue collar position, job or interest. It's all about the certification now. When me and you was growing up, it's all about you had to have the bachelor's degree, you had to have X amount of years of experience. So that really became the daunting task of it. And I think a lot of corporations think Microsoft, Google, and some of those guys a few years back was like, hey, if you guys can pass these aptitude tests and also get your certification, also will offer these online or these in-person curriculum courseworks, and you go through that process that way, you can still get the job done, right? So that's really great to see. And that advantageous movement has really assisted a lot of kids and a lot of young adults to be able to move in these particular areas. But they don't have to have a master's or a bachelor's and all these years of experience. You're talking about when you come out of college, you're going to need to be 32 years old before you can get a basic good paying job, right? Instead of just going through the process.
And all the debt that for many young people.
So a lot of kids look at that particular situation. I think some of our age group of parents go, man, that is tough for our kids to do. What are we going to do now? So that's why a lot of these curriculum-based stuff and certifications is the way to go.
To sort of related personal stories. One is my brother, older, went to college, didn't work for him, kind of floated around, and then at some point got into a technical school and got an associate's electrical engineering degree. Mm-hmm. And what he liked, he worked for a cell phone company. He was like, I'd go to school at night and I'd go use it the next day. Yeah. It all connected in a way that college didn't, like the purpose of it, and has built a really good career out of that. And he was like, I don't know why no one told me when I was graduating from high school, it's not college or not. Yes. There's this other paths. And now I think we've gotten way smarter about even shorter term technical, certificate sort of programs. The other one is my son, who is a programmer. I went to 4 years at USC, which was fantastic and all really great. And I remember after he graduated, he was like, well, Dad, I probably could have got pretty much all this in like a 12-week program. I was like, thanks.
Really? We could have saved the whole
son.
bunch of money.
Really appreciate the honesty, although sometimes maybe you want to hold that back.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a great, the neat thing is all the options, right?
Absolutely.
And that kids, if they know, here in Crosstown, there's, Tech 901. There's all these different kind of options that I do feel like it was all or nothing. You were either going to be working at a fast food place or construction, or you were going to go to college when I was coming out of school. Just a couple minutes left here. The COVID thing, one thing that I think still, we're all obviously still kind of coming off COVID and still dealing with that, even though we're right around the 4-year anniversary from when it really exploded in the United States. I remember Elliot Perry, the basketball player and community figure here, having him on, I think, during COVID. And he talked early on about, he does a lot of work with youth and through sports and through other things. And so echoes of a lot of what you've been saying. And he said, I remember him saying, it was probably still in 2020, maybe later in the year, he said, Eric, I'm really, really worried. A lot of these kids that I mentor are not calling me back. I get some of them on Zoom, but it's not the same as when I can go and be with them. And that was the first, I remember sort of, I don't know, warning sign that when Elliot Perry was saying, these kids are not connecting with me in a whole new and different way. Absolutely. And that ramifications of that you've seen continue?
Absolutely. Again, this is not just, Memphis
or
Tennessee thing. Right. It's a national thing. You know how important it was for us to interact with your comrades, your friends, people at school. You build that kind of social equity bank, if you will. You learn how to interact with folks. You learn your tendencies. You learn, the good, bad, and the ugly things of going through high school. But if you're isolated for 3-4 years and all you have is a computer and you're seeing people on a particular screen, you can imagine the challenges from a mental health perspective, from a self-esteem perspective, from a mental capacity perspective that some of these kids have went through. And I think mirroring what Elliot had said is that some of these kids probably got lost in their own little vacuum of depression or, self-doubt or self-esteem issues and just couldn't break out of it. And now that the doors are back open, to the world, some of those folks probably had some dark thoughts during that time period. And now we're kind of seeing some of that stuff play out in communities across the nation. So that's the sad part about it. But, I'm implementing a mental health initiative through Boys and Girls Club of Greater Memphis, because we know that some of that leftover components that they dealt with in COVID is resonating now in their daily lives. And we need to help them walk through that process.
With just a minute, that's amazing. And it's amazing work. And it's great to meet you and have you here. And a face behind the name of the organization that everyone is pointing to and saying, So now they can email you and say, now, not only do I support you, I have money for you. You're a Grizzlies fan, or you kind of got to still be a bit of a Nuggets fan, especially given where they are?
Actually, neither.
Really?
Yeah, I grew up a Lakers fan.
Oh, okay.
When I was a kid, we had our version of the Boys and Girls Club back home. Yeah. The first NBA game that our community center took us to was a Lakers and Nuggets game. So it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar against Dan Issel. And the Lakers just trumped the Nuggets. And also they got into a physical fight. So I got to see
that was old
Kareem
basketball,
beat up Dan Issel. And I was like, man, I am hooked. I love the Lakers, Magic and James Worthy and Cooper and all those guys start coming. But I've always been a Nuggets fan because I'm a hometown guy. But Lakers was always my premier team. But I was very happy to see the Nuggets win last year. They beat my Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and it was really big and huge for the city. Yeah. Have you been to Grizzlies games? I assume you have. I go to a lot of Grizzlies games. Really, really talented group, young. They got some really explosive players and some really good talent. They'll be great down the road once they get past the injury bug.
I was watching last night. I was like, I don't even know who any of these guys are, and I'm a season ticket holder. I mean, it's crazy. Last thing I always try to ask people, because this is fundamentally a music station, what was the first concert you went to?
First concert I went to was, I think it was the Paid in Full concert. It was Run DMC, Salt Pepper, the Fat Boys, Houdini. It was one of the most.
Wow.
It was like right in the podium of hip hop, right back in the mid to early '80s. Yeah. So I got to see that down the Denver Coliseum, and I was really blown away at that point, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Metise Moore, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. That is all the time we have this week. If you missed any of the show, you can get it at WYXR or the Daily Memphian site or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.